Hey, what's up guys? It's Anderson from Let's Rock Your English. Today in our series named Open Talk, I'll be talking about some of the causes that make a lot of people structure sentences in English incorrectly. Some of these causes can be insecurity, lack of practice, lack of knowledge, and many others. But I set aside 6 causes to be discussed today. So, let's go! Welcome back guys! First of all, as you might have noticed, I'm not recording this video in a studio today. I'm making this video at home. So in case you guys hear some noise in the background, so please calm down. Don't get so stressed out, alright? What I have noticed as a teacher is that a lot of people use the present tense to answer questions which were asked in the past tense. For example, it's very common for me to ask my students, for example, on Mondays, hey guys, what did you do over the weekend? And instead of saying something like this, oh, I went to the park, I had lunch with my parents, or I did this and that, they say, I go to the park, I have lunch with my parents, I do this and that. As you can see here, there's a disconnection because my question was asked in the past, and of course I'm expecting, my student to answer the question in the past as well. But instead, they use the present tense because sometimes, they think that they're saying something in the past because in their brain they have, of course, the past actions, but what is coming out of their mouth is the present tense. Let's go to the second point right now, which is the proper conjugation. I've already, made a video about do, does, the verb to be. You might see the link above. Okay, and in this video I talked about the correct conjugation for the present tense when a verb is being conjugated, for example, by he, she, or it. In the case of the verb be, you might already know that you say he is, she is, it is. But when you're conjugating other verbs in the present tense, you have to make sure that you are adding the letter s or es or ies, depending on the verb ending, to this verb. Okay? For example, I work, he works every day, she works every day. And what I hear a lot is people saying, oh, she work every day. Or instead of saying she doesn't work every day, the student says, oh, she don't work every day. That's a very common mistake that a lot of people, make when they're conjugating verbs. Now let's go to the third one, which is infinitive and gerund. Oh my God. A lot of people, misuse this when they are structuring sentences too. For example, instead of saying something like, oh, I'm making a video right now. As you guys, could, notice, I said, I am making with the ing a video now. So, and instead of, structuring the sentence like this, a lot of people sometimes, say, I'm make a video right now. They don't consider that, for example, after the verb to be in this case, we have a verb which is in the gerund form with the ing, just of course, to represent a continuous action. So pay attention to this because this is a very common mistake as well. And another mistake that a lot of students make is not using the infinitive form formed by to and the verb after a verb which was already conjugated. But for example, let me give you an example just to make myself clearer. I want to travel tomorrow. Here, as you guys could notice, the first verb to want was conjugated by I, but the second one wasn't conjugated. It must be in the infinitive form. So it's very common to hear people making this mistake. I want travel tomorrow. No, not I want travel tomorrow, because the second verb is not conjugated, is not conjugated. Therefore, you need to place to before it. Let's go, to the fourth, cause that make a lot of people make mistakes in English, which is the affirmative, negative, and interrogative forms. In English, we have the auxiliary verbs. of course, to put a sentence in the negative form as well as putting a sentence in the interrogative form. This is something completely different from Portuguese. We don't have such a thing, in our language, which makes it harder for a lot of people, to get this right. But guys, for example, when you say a sentence in the negative form, you need to consider that we have the auxiliary verb coming before not. In this case, for example, I don't work every day. Some people, might say, I not work every day. Because, for example, in Portuguese, we don't have the auxiliary verb, do, coming before not. But in English, unfortunately, there is. And you have, to memorize this rule, and you have, to practice this constantly, just, to get familiar with this rule, and of course, not to avoid making this mistake. Let's go, to the fifth, cause of common mistakes structuring sentences, okay? Which is collocation. I've already talked about collocations. Collocations are really important when you are structuring sentences in English, and mainly when you want to think in English correctly. Because sometimes you collocate certain words in Portuguese, but in English the collocations will be different. For example, in Portuguese we say, I will open an exception. But in English you don't say open an exception, you say make an exception. So here you have, different verbs used in both languages. In Portuguese I would use the verb to open, okay, to collocate with exception, but in English, the correct verb is to make. And now let's talk about, the sixth cause that a lot of people, disconsider when they are structuring sentences out there, which is leaving a lot of words out of the sentence. They don't even notice that they are leaving certain words out of the sentence. For example, I need to go to park. Instead of saying I need to go to the park, they say I need to go to park. But if you say only to, you are using, of course, the proper, preposition here, but it must be followed by the article the. And sometimes, people say something like, for example, my cell phone is in pocket, or my cell phone is in bag, instead of saying in the bag, or my cell phone, my bag, instead of saying in my bag. So guys, pay very close attention to every single word that is coming out of our mouth. That was the video today, which was a different video, so I hope you guys liked, because I recorded this video at home, in a more informal setting. So please leave your comments, below. And feel free to suggest, any topic for me to talk about, in the future videos. All right, guys? So that's it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and follow us on our social media. Peace.